All right, it says we are live. My name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehan. I'm with Swiftfire True TV, and I'm really excited because I have a brand new guest that I haven't had before. Brad Olsen is here with us today, and I'm just finding out that we have a lot of mutual friends, so I'm super excited to see where this goes. Welcome, Brad.
Hello, Dr. Sharnael. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to connect with you.
Awesome. And why we are waiting for people to pop on, I'm going to actually make sure that this is public. And I'm going to ask that everybody out there, if you could please share and tag and do your due diligence to get this out, so we can beat all the dumb algorithms that everyone wants to put out, so we can be hidden. So we have some really good information that we're putting out today, and I want to make sure as many people possible are getting this. Some of you know that my YouTube was taken down. I started a new one. I will put a link in there too, so you guys can submit or subscribe to the new one. But also, please do your due diligence and follow and get your notifications, get on the newsletter and what have you, so we can, again, beat the system. That's what it's about. Like, we got to be smarter and better. But so Brad, yes. So I met you first. Well, I first found out about you from Michael Jaco, and then after I did some digging around on your books, I got one of them. I got this first one. Well, it's not your first one. This is your third one. This is, I don't know why. This one just stuck out to me. Beyond Esoteric, and then also Escaping Prison Planet. And I just came in the mail. And the next thing you know, I went on Facebook and I saw that we're doing something with Laura Eisenhower. So she's a really good friend. So I was like, how did I just like miss? How did I not meet you before now? I don't know. I guess it's just timing. But I would love for everybody who may not be familiar with your work to get a little idea about who you are, what you're doing, where to connect with you, and kind of a little bit of your background. So if you don't mind, share with us a little bit. How did you get where you are? Like, what is it? What's going on?
Well, boy, the 30-second elevator pitch. I traveled around the world. I've been to all 7 continents, including Antarctica, a little over 2 years ago via sailboat, which was quite an adventure, as well as on that trip 4 months in South America, and really putting the bookend on my world explorations, although there's a lot of places still to go. But the new book, Beyond Esoteric, Escaping Prison Planet, has just come out a couple months ago, and it's doing real well. People like you that take an interest in these subjects, this esoteric research, which literally means these are subjects that are available to a select few, that you have to want this kind of information to get it. It's all that has been hidden, which is now starting to be revealed. So I find this very fascinating. It does tie into travel, because when I was working on I did travel guidebooks for many years, including a series on sacred places. And when I go to these places, I would give them a 3 or 4 page treatment in my Sacred Places Around the World guidebook. Use the Great Pyramid, for example. But then seeing that there is so much more to these locations, especially what is built into the megalithic building itself, and the placement of these great pyramids, this being very esoteric knowledge, having some ability to then reflect on this after I did those Sacred Places books, and then putting that additional information into the series of esoteric guidebooks. And my new book catalog just came out. This is going to 500 bookstores across the country right now. And of course, Beyond Esoteric, top billing. But then there's also Modern Esoteric and Future Esoteric, which came out a few years ago. But these books are evergreen, and that means that the information never really goes away or changes. So I don't repeat my information, and it took me 6 years to come out with Beyond Esoteric because there were some chapters that didn't make it in the first two. They just didn't fit. Not that they weren't good or anything, but I saved them for the book 3, and I knew it was coming all along. And one little thing about the lockdown last year is it gave me that time to get busy and finish up this book. And I'm really glad I did. And it's very timely to have some of the CV info in there and other things I'm not sure if we're allowed to talk about here, but nonetheless, I don't shy away from these subjects. And the good thing about doing books is that they cannot be deleted or edited out by an external source. So I'm very fortunate to have been in book publishing now for 25 years and having the ability to publish books by other authors that I really feel strongly about their message and their book, as well as not having any oversight over the contents of the books that I create. And just to be in service to all and have this information accessible. That's really my MO, Dr. Sharnael. And I think you do that with your interviews too, that you look for the information that could best serve the greater good. And there it is. It's longer than 30 seconds, but 3-minute pitch.
Oh, sorry about that. I had muted because my dog was barking. So I've actually traveled quite a bit too. And I didn't know that about the boat. That's why when you were like, whatever floats your boat, and I was like, I don't have a boat. But you literally were 4 months on a boat.
No, 26 days on a sailboat to Antarctica. It was a 4-month trip, and the trip to Antarctica was in that 4 months. But I bought a Ford Expedition that was already outfitted for overland travel, and I drove about 5,000 kilometers. That's about 3,500 miles on that thing, and I bought it and sold it in South America. So
that's awesome.
Last year I had 3 cars to my name.
That's awesome. Yes. So I haven't been on all 7 continents. I have been very fortunate to see a lot of different things. So with growing up military and then 30 years now in ministry, just going to different continents and countries and serving that way. Tell us about, because when I talked to you on the phone before our interview about your books, you mentioned about the esoteric, and you were saying how it was very much for a certain vibration of people that were open to it, and how this isn't esoteric. Later, it won't be esoteric. So can you explain the definition of your definition of esoteric and exactly what, help the people understand, like, what does that mean to you?
Sure. Well, it literally means that it is information that is accessed and utilized by a select few people. When the general population starts to understand these subjects, the word actually changes to exoteric. And so as I've been on this journey to find all that is hidden will be revealed, I have come across quite a bit of information over the course of the last 15 years since I've been working on all 3 of these books. And that's significant because a few years ago, before all the censorship began, I consider it the golden age of the internet, when you could pretty much do a deep dive and get into researching just about any of these subjects that I cover. And by doing so, it has given me a lot of different data points to draw from. And that's basically how I do my research. Is I try to get as many data points on a certain subject as possible. I'll give you an example. The Roswell crash of 1947. Look at it as a bell curve, and all the data points are little dots on that bell curve. On the one end, you have a couple authors that say that the crash was a German craft. You really only stick to that author, or even a Japanese craft. On the other end of the bell curve is the official government explanation that it was a weather balloon with crash test dummies. And really, they're the only ones that produce that data point. Where the top of the bell curve, that's where you get all the witnesses. The Army coming in a few days later, Max Brazel, whose ranch it was on, other people that collected little samples from the crash. Man, there are literally dozens of people that saw that crash, saw dead aliens. One was still alive that was then whisked away when they finally did come out and get it. And so, although I wasn't alive for that incident, neither were you, in 1947, all we can do is research it and therefore study where all these data points show us what really happened. And because it is not officially recognized as a UFO crash, it is by its very nature an esoteric subject. So that's kind of how I then weave in the whole narrative of UFO and ETs, and I'm able to go into some subject matter that's very pertinent to today. And that's why I chose the title Beyond Esoteric for the third book, because I get into some things that really go beyond the scope of what any 19th century occultist would have any idea of the world that we're living in today. And I find that very relevant because things are changing so rapidly just in our lifetime. Even people half our age, in the age of the internet, have seen so much change that we really need to stay on top of what's happening, because we're going into this transhumanist world where literally our bodies are changing to the point where we're becoming human 2.0, and so many other things that are under the scope of what we're being told. For example, the chemtrailing of the skies. Now it's finally coming out that, oh yeah, we have this agenda to dim the sun, and the cover story is just bogus. What they really do is raining down on us a lot of toxic heavy metals as well as morgellons. And here you go. This is nothing that anybody in the 19th century could ever imagine the world that we live in today. And so many of us just don't even see it up there in the sky, yet there it is, blanketing the blue skies out and creating this film of artificial cloud that you can often see gets hit by the HARP arrays and creates these frequency clouds, I call them, when the clouds start to look like the bottom of a sandy ocean floor. We never saw clouds like that when we were kids, but you see them today, and oftentimes that will precede a weather event. So you know that they're doing weather modification. These documents were released, they were leaked, really, controlling the weather by 2025, an Air Force document that is now about 25 years old. And that's what they're doing. They're changing the weather. It's a weather warfare program, although chemtrails on this subject have many different uses. It's a way to do multiple different things with one activity, such as spraying the skies. And it is something that is changing our physical bodies. So I think people absolutely need to be paying attention to this stuff, or they'll suffer the consequences.
Yes, I understand. And so one thing I do want to talk about Antarctica, because you went there, and that seems to be an exciting topic. But also, well, go ahead, talk to a little bit about what you saw in Antarctica and what gives a little on that.
Well, sure. As I said in the setup, I took a sailboat down there, my partner at the time, for 26 days. There were 3 Americans and 11 Poles. It was a Polish vessel called the Chief One out of Gdansk, Poland. And this was actually the maiden voyage for the captain, the crew. Although we were all considered crew, we had to go up and do watch for icebergs and occasionally help out with certain chores around the boat and so forth. So nobody was really a guest or just a passenger. We were all crew. And my dad owned a sailboat. We've been to the British Virgin Islands sailing around, and he had one in Chicago where I grew up, across Lake Michigan a number of times. So I was already familiar with sailing and love it. And had this great opportunity to get on a boat that we just discovered down there in Ushuaia, Argentina. So I just left my car in like a long-term parking lot, and it was fine, although the battery was dead when I got back 26 days later, but we got to jump. And then I sold it about 2 weeks after that. And just got on the boat, and those were our living quarters for 26 days. We were each assigned a bunk. Emily Infinity was above me. I was on the bottom bunk. And once we turned into the Drake Passage, it was very stormy seas. These are the roughest ocean seas in the world, in the Southern Ocean. As we were crossing, we both got violently ill with seasickness, as did most everybody on the ship. Not everybody. Fortunately, our captain did not, and steadied the ship all the way through. And 92 hours later, we were dropping anchor at King George Island, which is in the South Shetland island group, just off of the Palmer Peninsula. And there was a Polish base called Arctowski, and we were already had plans to go ashore. We brought them fresh fruit and vegetables, which they're very grateful for. And they in turn allowed us to take a shower, to have some meals with them, and even get on the internet. Was the one and only time I was able to just make a quick post and let people know that we arrived safely. But it was a very harrowing passage to cross the Drake. And I've been researching Antarctica before, during, and after. In fact, I have some maps of some of the German maps from New Schwabenland in my new book. And I talk about this quite frequently in interviews. In fact, I'm going to do a new History Channel show, which I can't mention the name of quite yet, but they're very interested in some of my research on the German New Schwabenland base, the New Berlin base. So then it was 15 full days in Antarctica. We basically every day was a new adventure. We were either sailing to, say, a penguin colony and another research base, and we just get off on the Zodiac, which is a big rubber dinghy, and we could go ashore. It's kind of a misnomer that you can't go anywhere. We could go anywhere we wanted, and literally did. And we have a crew meeting every so often, and we would go over the maps, and the captain would explain where we're thinking of going next, and we could add feedback. For example, my big ask was to go to the Palmer Station, which is run by America. It's not a military base. That's another misconception. There are not military bases down there per the Antarctica Treaty of 1961.
They did that. The UN settled nobody can do anything. Yeah, but go ahead.
So the American Palmer base is run by the National Science Foundation, writes all the checks. But everybody is basically signed up through a third party to go down there. And you can work in Antarctica. They're probably going to start hiring pretty soon for next season. Wow. And there's a multitude of tasks people do. You could be a chef. A lot of scientists go down there. They're studying climate change. They're studying animal migrations, the populations of animals. And this is all very important because per the Antarctica Treaty, the whole continent was preserved as a biosphere. Mm-hmm. And it is one of the longest standing world treaties that has held up over time. And it's a good thing because there are a lot of resources in Antarctica, and it's very much worth preserving. Even though right now in the off season, after all the seasonal bases have closed and there's there's no tourism there now. They're coming into their winter as we are coming into summer in the northern hemisphere. There are only 1,000 people on the entire continent of Antarctica.
Wow.
And this is the fifth largest continent of the world. It's like 2 Australias combined, or 2 lower 48 states. It's huge. And it's abandoned, basically. It is an empty continent. So one of the impressions I got when we were sailing around is just how vast, wide, and open it is, and so unlike any other location on Earth. It's just a frozen continent, 99% covered in ice.
Wow.
And the wildlife down there really has no fear of humans. So you could go right up to a mother and baby penguin with your iPhone, and they're kind of like, hey, get out of my way. You're blocking the view. We had a whale swim right under our boat, checking us out as we were checking them out. Same with seals and elephant seals, just right there on the beach. They're about as curious as we are of them. And that's one of the cool things about going down there, is just that to have this experience with the wildlife and penguin colonies that would just go as far as the eye can see, thousands and thousands of them. And we would often say you can smell the colony before you could see it. You'd get a whiff of it, and then we'd come around a turn in one of the channels we were taking, and then there it is. And like, oh yeah, we smelled that one about an hour ago. So it's things like that, these little tidbits of the trip that I'll never forget. It's just really a trip of a lifetime.
Well, you mentioned resources. I mean, we know that one of the big things is uranium, and that's one of the places that was the Germans were up there. And also, what about ETs in that situation? Because they were hiding out and going underground and doing things there. Did you see anything in the skies or any crazy that kind of UFO stuff going on?
Well, Emily Infinity and I, we made it our duty to talk to anybody who would listen to us. And the line of questioning was, do you know anything about these massive ships under the ice? And supposedly there are 3 of them, and they're nicknamed by the alphabet agency, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, the nickname after Columbus's first 3 ships. Yep. I think I've located one of them in the New Schwabenland area claim of Nazi Germany in 1939. And I have a presentation, a 90-minute presentation that I do. In fact, I'll be doing it live up in Mount Shasta at the end of August for the Mount Shasta Summer Conference. And anybody who wants to go, you can use the promo code BRAD, B-R-A-D, and get a discount on your ticket.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So if people want to check that out, I don't want to belabor the point because it really is a long talk and there's so much to it. But basically, I asked everybody I could if they knew anything about A, the crafts under the ice, B, antediluvian civilizations, and 3, the pyramids poking up through, if they had some kind of connection or any knowledge of more modern underground bases there. And quite routinely, everybody said no. Not that they were hiding something. I just don't think they knew, because oftentimes the people that worked at the research bases, they're very seasonal workers. They would be interns or people that were assigned to a very specific duty, say to study the ice fish that live under the ice. And that's what they're there for. They're not there to inquire about whether there are any secret operations going on. So unfortunately, that was a big no, but there was a couple of tidbits we did find. And you asked about ships in the sky. And of course, we were watching the sky all the time. And it was great to be down there during the Antarctic summer because the days are really long.
Oh, wow.
Only about 2 or 3 hours of pitch darkness night. And we got a chance to see the midnight sun, which is quite impressive to have sunlight at midnight. But it was mostly cloudy when we were there. Never did see a single chemtrail. That's kind of a good thing. And there were 2 days where it was warm enough in the middle of the day to sit on the deck of the boat in just our bathing suits. So it's kind of
Oh.
a misnomer that it's always super freezing cold down there. There were a couple times we did the polar plunge, jumped in. One time on the beach amid the icebergs, just got out and dried off. It wasn't like a shiver freezing cold kind of thing. But I do that. I do cold dunks anyway. So I'm kind of into the Wim Hof breathing and that sort of thing. And then another time we were at the Vernansky Ukrainian research station. They had a sauna and they crank it up really, really hot. And then there was a ladder to go down to the water to do the polar plunge and then come run back up to the sauna.
Oh,
Did that on a couple cycles. That was pretty cool. So it was that kind of thing. It was just adventure after adventure, meeting other sailors, including a sister ship called the Selma, which had scuba divers on it. And one night they invited us over to their boat and showed us a bunch of their videos and photos. And I'll tell you, Sharnael, it's amazing what's underneath the water in Antarctica. I'm a avid scuba diver myself, and it was as colorful and as plentiful with sea life. And I wouldn't say it's coral because that only grows in warm waters, but very colorful plant life. Below the ice in Antarctica, I would have never thought that. I did do a 16-part video series on Sci-Fi TV called Antarctica by Sail. And one of the episodes is about these scuba divers and all the video and photos they showed us. And it's just truly amazing. They did wreck dives. They did under the ice shelf dives. And they also did under the iceberg dives, which was just fascinating. I'd love to go back and do that, but well, you got to be prepared because every inch of your skin has to be covered, or it could be very dangerous if you're exposed to that cold water, because it is sub-freezing temperatures. That's what you have icebergs there, and you have entire species of plants and animals that only live in the subarctic conditions, including the ice fish, which were being studied by this young man who was from Argentina at the Argentinian base. And him and his assistant, when I asked them my questions, they said, well, we know of something, but we're not really supposed to tell anyone. And so we just kept pressing him, no, you got to tell us what you see. And finally, the guy, after an hour talking to him, finally said, well, there was another Argentinian base called it's named after the ship that was sunk in the Falkland Wars. They had a sighting about a month before of ships and orbs flying over the base, and because they talked to each other, they had told the people at the Brown Argentinian base, and then they related it to us. And because they were very reluctant to tell us, it's called the Belgrano 2 base. And it, by the way, is very close to the claim of New Schwabenland. It's over on the East Antarctica side where that base is located. But because they were so reluctant to tell us, it leads me to believe that they probably did have some kind of sighting there. So it was that report of a sighting, as well as finding out that there very much is a no-fly zone over a portion near the South Pole. And that's the reported entrance under the ice. Now, up on the South Pole, it is 2 miles thick. So the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, it's about 11,000 feet elevation. Antarctica is the highest elevation continent in the world because of all the ice in Antarctica.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this is the location that Admiral Byrd, who is also a very avid pilot, in his diary, he said he saw this gaping hole like 40 miles across with enough room to drop his plane in and then fly out.
Wow.
And what he saw down there, well, I would love to get some more data points on his diary, because he said that there was flora and fauna underneath this. Now, just keep in mind, it doesn't even have to be like an inner Earth scenario. Antarctica is the most volcanic continent in the world. There are 91 known volcanoes, and they would have a tendency to create these big domes under the ice. So it could very well be that he was just flying into an opening from one of these volcanoes and then having the space to fly around and then turn around and come back out. So there is a no-fly zone there. And as I said to George Norrie from Coast to Coast, I was on his show Beyond Belief right when I came back and was telling it to him in the setup. I'll do my invitation to George. Like, why do they need a no-fly zone there? There's no reason. Nobody goes there. And in fact, really nobody does go there. And they don't even fly in their supplies. They come in on a cat train. So like a snow cat at a ski resort, and then they just put a whole bunch of different cargo spots on the back of that. So
Wow.
Yeah, nobody flies in, but you can fly in to an airport near South Pole Station with some of these travel companies. And I talked to this one when I was in Chile, and they also have an office in Salt Lake City, and showed them all my pictures and everything else. And they were saying that the pyramids that stick out, they call them nunataks. They just say, well, they're just these attractive four-sided mountains. But when I asked if they ever landed there, checked them out, and said, oh, no, we just fly over them and point them out to the passengers. So that I think the jury's still out on the pyramids, that they would need to be tested, climbed, or taken samples of to find out if they're just a nunatak, an attractive mountain, or if they had been fashioned or built long ago.
Yeah,
so
or
still
use
a lot of mysteries down there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're getting a lot of interference. I'm not sure if I'm getting like scratchy sounds, and it's been a little jumpy. So I know you have a wealth of information that I'm really excited to hear, and I can already tell we're gonna have to do another one. We might have to do a part 2 and a 3 or something. Are you hearing that scratchy sound?
I am hearing it now.
I don't know what that is, but
I didn't hear it earlier.
hold on a second. Let me see.
I saw the Facebook feed just dropped too. If you want to start and do a part 2, we could probably try to do it over. We're already 33 minutes live now.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and how can people find you? If you could, I know I'm going to get all of his links, guys. Everybody who's watching, I'm going to get all the links. It sounds like the Facebook page or somebody is screwing with the interference here. I have, but I'm going to get all his links and I'm going to put them in here in his bio and everything, because you guys need these books. They are amazing and be really, really helpful for you. So aggravating, but I will get with you, Brad, do a follow-up here to make sure we have the best clear communication for everybody to be able to actually hear what you're saying. There you go. All right. This is so weird. This has never happened. Anyway, so thank you so much for being. Do you have any final words before we end today?
Well, just we should do it again, because we've only scratched the surface, and you're a pleasure to speak to. Just to remind people, the new book just came out. Check it out. And next time we talk, I would love to hear your interpretation of what escaping prison planet might be. I like to do this with my interview hosts, and it's quite a divergent answer every time.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that part. That's what stuck out to me is the prison planet part. So I would love to pick up with that. So love you guys so much. Sorry about all of this weird stuff. I'm not really sure about the technology, but I hope it doesn't keep you from listening. And we'll talk soon. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.